Hello, this is Greg Allison with Green Greg. It's coming to you on the 17th of February, 2021. And we have a special guest today. Our special guest has been on the show before. You can check out the videos with her, Stacy Zavicki. Stacy has a YouTube channel everyone should check out and subscribe to. It's called Sustainable Stewards. Her channel is all about homesteading, about gardening, putting food up, the kind of things that you need to know to survive. Like I tell you, the objective of my channel here is if you survive, thrive, and stay out of the hive. And she's really big on the surviving and thriving end of it. And I know she's also working on this to stay out of the hive, because Stacy's also involved with our Freedom Restoration Foundation. And we'll have a website coming out really soon. We're working on it as we speak. It's going to look good. So if you want to join the Freedom Restoration Foundation, be sure to email us at info@freedomrestorationfoundation.org and put freedom in the subject line. Links will be below. Now, Stacy is going to be talking with us about staying warm, how to stay warm, how to drive and cook and thrive when you got no power and it's cold as all get out, in a situation like we're in right now. She's going to be covering tips of first things to do. Now, I've lived in Alaska, so her and I both have plenty to chime in on this. I've had people ask me, Greg, we don't know how to drive down here. How do we drive? I've actually had a request for driving tips to the last video post, even though the video before actually had that covered in that video too. But that's okay. We'll cover it again. So, Stacy, how are you doing? You staying warm?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're toasty.
Good, good. All righty. So I'll let you kick this off, Stacy. Tell us about your experience and from your knothole, what people need to do to stay warm. And we'll talk about the driving tips, the whole thing.
Sure. Well, folks, I'm up here in north central Wisconsin. The nearest town to me that some of you, if you looked at a map, would be Wausau, Wisconsin. So we get cold. We're used to the polar vortexes up here. It's nothing new. We spent the last week and a half, 2 weeks at between 30 below and 40 below. So, we know cold up here, and it gets down to 50 below, but up here in the north, our infrastructure, our grid, and our lifestyle is designed to just keep going. We don't stop. I get up every morning, I do my chores, I go milk cows at night. It's life as usual. We just bundle up a little more. And so where I wanted to start with today was, what can you do today in the first 10 minutes? And then what can you do in the next 10 days? And I looked up, the weather for Texas. Right now it's partially cloudy is what I'm getting from all the, weather stuff. And it's 25 to 30 degrees, and some places 35 to 40 degrees. But there's enough sun there that, that guys down south, the sun is your best friend. All right. Those south facing windows, open up them curtains right now. Get them curtains open and let that sunshine shine into that house. You're going to raise the temperature in your south facing rooms 10 degrees within 10 minutes immediately. Number two, check to see on your doorways if you have any kind of not sealed doors or windows, anything where you feel airflow coming through, and take some old towels, whatever, roll them up, put them on the floor to cover the hole at the base of the door so that wind isn't blowing in there. Do that on your windows. And then on the north facing windows where there's not sun, shut those curtains. Keep that cold air from blowing through and getting in. Number three, if you were smart and had candles, at least some basic candles in your house, your waters, some of your folks are saying your water's already froze up. Right now, go underneath your cabinets, your kitchen cabinets, your bathroom cabinets, take out the chemicals, get them out of there, go put them, in a safe space far away. Take a tea light candle or a regular candle this big, it doesn't matter. Open the door so you got a gap about yay big, so there's some airflow there, and put that candle underneath that cover, and that will start to melt your pipes. Now, once you start getting a little flow, guys, and for you folks that still have water, you need to turn your faucets on. You need to have a good quick drip, 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 or a constant low, a low stream. Water cannot freeze if it's moving. All right. So up here in the north, when it gets real cold, if we have any lines that are on the north side of the house, before we go to bed at night, we put them at a low drip and the pipes won't freeze. So if you're not froze yet, do that right now to keep them from freezing. If you're froze up, get those chemicals out and get those candles underneath there blowing. If you have, and I know in the south, homes are somewhat built different than here in the north. We have basements up here, so we can go in the basement and we can, do it that way. But down south, I know there's either crawl spaces or slabs of concrete. Either way, if you have a crawl space, get under there, get a couple big candles in there where where your pipes are, get them under there and start thawing it out. Now you're going to want to make sure that you're not putting candles next to propane or natural gas. Big no, but the thought process is if you had propane or natural gas, you'd have heat right now. You wouldn't be in this predicament because, it's, you wouldn't be in that predicament. You could run a stove. If you have propane stove, gas stove, turn the stove on and heat your house. Those are the things that people can do immediately to mitigate the water issues, because Greg, as you know, water's life. And if you don't have it, you're up a creek without a paddle real quick. And whether it's summer or winter, water is just as important, I did want to comment real quick because I'm a farmer. I raise animals in the extreme cold. Got a lot of messages, and even on the women in agriculture Facebook pages, a lot of you folks down south are asking about your animals. You're highly concerned about them. And I'm going to tell you, stop being concerned about your livestock. Throw some extra hay, de-ice, if you have to be out there with a hammer, getting a hole in the top of that, 500 gallon water tank so you can get at the water, great. If you have snow, I know you guys got quite a bit of a snowstorms down there. Your cows will be fine to eat snow for a couple days. If it was 40 below, I would say absolutely not. They couldn't be eating snow because, their inner temperature would drop. But guys, 0, 5 degrees, 15 degrees, it is not going to hurt those cows. It's not going to hurt those sheep to nibble on a little snow for a couple days. Just give them some extra hay. I don't give cows or livestock extra hay unless it's below 0. And so don't worry about, let the livestock be the last of your concerns. Honestly, Greg, God made those animals they're equipped. I went out the other night, we were at 45 below 0. And I was just checking on things because when it gets that cold, electric fences and things like that just don't work. And my little Jersey, and anybody who knows anything about livestock knows that Jersey cows are not hardy cows. They're not. I go out there and she's laying in a pile of hay, warm and toasty as could be at 45 below. And all they have is a windbreak from a barn. They're not in the barn, just a solid windbreak. That's it. So don't be worried about those cows. Be more concerned about the elderly in your community and your family, keeping them warm. So that's great. That's where I suggest to start right now. Candles and, get them pipes undone. Also, for eating, I know a lot of people right now are not able to heat up their food because they have electric stoves. If you have a camp stove, a grill, I don't know if most Americans have grills, outdoor cooking units. Get out there, cook outside. If you have your canned goods, I pray you have your canned goods. I pray that you had, Greg, here's the question. See, after that last hurricane 2 years ago, a lot of Texans should have took note and got up and said, all right, we're not going to fall into this trap of not being prepared again, right? And they should have got prepared. So I'm hoping you're prepared and you have some Campbell's soup, some canned goods or whatever. You know what, guys? You don't need to heat that up to eat it. And Greg's got his preparedness food there. A lot of this stuff, there's a lot of food that you don't really need to heat up to cook. So, but if you have a gas propane grill, if you have a camp stove, if you have some masonry blocks out back, some stones and some wood from your tree that, some deadfall or whatever, go ahead and make a little campfire outside and take the grates off out of your stove. You know, you can take the grate out of your stove, or you know what I'm talking about, that slides in and out. Put that on top of those blocks and make yourself a little campfire out back. And there you know, you're heating up. Now I know that city folks, that's a little more difficult to do, but honestly, people in any kind of apartment complexes shouldn't be getting too cold, because heat rises. And you know, those buildings, the fourplexes, the sixplexes, we have them up here. My daughter was living in one, you know, a couple of years. She rarely even ran the heat in 20 below zero, because there's just so much mass. You know, there's so much physical mass in those buildings. They just don't get as cold as a single family dwelling. But so guys, those are the things you can do right now. And if you have plastic, okay, now sleeping arrangements. My husband and I were talking about this. Even here in the north, and minus 50 below, there should be no reason, if you are in a home, that you should freeze to death. Not even at 50 below zero. Take your family, get them out of their individual rooms. Mom and dad, you got that queen size bed, put it in the living room, put it wherever in the kitchen, wherever that heat source is. Now, Greg, I'm talking from experience here. 6 years ago, propane in Wisconsin went up to $1,500 for 250 gallons, because there was a supply and demand issue. We at that time, actually it was about 7 years ago, we at that time were not living in this house. All we had was this chintzy trailer fireplace that didn't hardly put off any heat and propane. We couldn't heat our home. So what did we do? We brought the kids into the living room, and even that little fireplace that wasn't designed, it was just for you know, it was for pretty sake. You know what I mean? It didn't work. All the heat went out the chimney. We pulled everybody in the living room and got under the blankets together. At night, closed the curtains, had the plastic up on the windows. If you got, you know, any kind of clear or tarp or anything that is on that south facing, cover that up. If you're on that concrete block that I was talking about, that a lot of those down south are made out of, and you got carpeting or linoleum, whatever it is you got there, get those tarps out, get those extra blankets out, put that mattress on top of there, and cuddle, get in the same room. Honestly, Greg, up here, we do some bushcrafting, and we're making, you know, bushcraft shelters in 10 degrees and sleeping through the night with a little fire outside of it. There's absolutely zero reason anybody should freeze to death down south in a building. There's zero reason for it. And I know that the elderly are having problems. If you live next to an elder, get them out of that house and get them in with you right now. Pool your resources, take care of those people. Family members hopefully are taking care of family members, but you know how that goes, Greg. Sometimes people are too many miles apart. So take it upon yourself to help each other out. Oh, I can't hear you, Greg.
Sorry about that. I'm getting myself out.
Yep.
People are all concerned these days about social distancing and things like that, and that can cause a lot of hesitation on taking care of elderly. So, but bear in mind, you know, it's freezing is a whole lot worse than some of these other alternatives. So
right.
do make sure that your elderly friends, family, and neighbors are taken care of. Check in on them, call them, at least knock on the door and say hi, and make sure that they're in good shape. Now, I'll add to that a couple other little things about staying warm in the winter. A lot of you are, of course, a lot of you have fireplaces and wood stoves, but a lot of people don't, especially the urban dweller. And they say, Greg, what do we do? And maybe your building don't have all the thermal mass like Stacy's been pointing out. One alternative of what I've done is I buy these kerosene heaters, and you know, for about 150 bucks, you can buy a brand new kerosene heater. Now, what you got to do is find the stores that actually carry kerosene. You can't just use diesel fuel or any nasty thing like that.
Right.
You want to burn, I think it's K2. It's a good clean kerosene because you don't want carbon monoxide building up in your house. And you probably want to buy more than just a 5-gallon container to keep it in case you have a long-term outage. But
Yeah.
kerosene heaters can really warm a house up. There's
Oh,
an
yeah.
amount of heat, especially the big ones. Now you get the little ones. I don't mess with those. I buy the big ones. Those things will heat my house. One
And
of
I have a big one too, because if I don't feel like fueling up the fireplace in the greenhouse, I'll use it in the greenhouse for a couple hours just to take the nip off. You do have to have a little bit of airflow if they don't vent, like you said, real good. You know, if they put off if it's got to be a good kerosene, and don't drip it on. If you even drip a little bit on that outside, man,
Dude,
stinks, you know?
make sure you fill it and refill it outdoors. Do not try
Yes.
to fill that kerosene heater in your house, especially
That's
on
right.
carpet, because that stuff, you're going to spill some of it. It'll get in your carpet. It's never coming out, and it might be
Yeah.
a fire hazard. And the fumes, you
Right.
don't. So make sure it may not be comfortable, but fill those things outdoors.
Yeah.
Always fill them
Yeah.
outdoors and bring them back and forth. It's a little extra work, but it's well worth it. So that's the tip on kerosene. Another thing with candles is a lot of people are taking clay pots, like flower pots. They're
Yep.
taking the bottom that catches water out of a clay pot, and they're making that a platform to put candles in. And they're taking what's normally the bottom that the plants are in, the cup, you might say, and they're holding it over the candles. They're leaving an air gap. Of course, there's a
Yep.
a drainage gap at the top of that pot, which is the bottom that's inverted, properly inverted.
Right.
You can separate these in many ways. Like you could have a rod going between a threaded rod, and you can adjust
Right.
nuts to get the gap struck. That's the best way to do it, and get
Mm-hmm.
really big nuts. But the other thing you could do is you could have like stanchions or something, maybe put a brick inside, but you don't want to bump into it and knock it over and cause a fire, because candles are a huge fire hazard.
Right.
So you got to put it somewhere where it's not going to get knocked over. Your dog or cat's not going to knock it
Yep.
over. Some people put these on posts and they build them. But if you're in a hurry, you might be able to do this expediently. But they get these little bitty candles like you buy in the camping supply sections. Little tin.
Yep.
They got a tin center foil around, not foil, but a little tin section. They're only about yay tall and yay big around. You can get other candles and put in them too. But those are excellent little sources for heat. You might also use those little heat sources like you buy for heating stuff you cook with. So these are quick, expedient ways to get some heat in your home. It's the thermal mass of the pot stores the heat and then re-radiates it. It's maybe some of the light in
Right.
it is converted to heat. I don't know how you get so much heat out of these little candles, but apparently they're
Yeah, they work, Greg. You know, and even like I said, the simple dripping of your lines, you know, or a just low, steady spring, that'll keep it from freezing as well. You know, that's up here. That's what people have been doing for years and years and years. Even when we got wood burning stoves, you know, it gets so cold up here that the north side of your house, even if you got wood burning stoves and you got good heat, you know, the outside, it'll get so cold that you can get frost on the inside of your walls. You know, so you know, there's things you
that's called
do.
hoarfrost. Southerners don't know what that is.
Yeah,
I
they
definitely
don't
know
know.
what it is.
I walked into the barn the other night, looked at the concrete wall. Now this is a heated, it's semi-heated. They keep it at 50 degrees in the winter time. But I looked at the wall, and the whole wall had that much frost on it from the
Warm in a hurry.
outside pushing in. Yeah, you know it's cold when you have that.
There's nothing like you are driving and you got cardboard totally covering your radiator in the front,
Yeah,
and you got vapor barriers on your side windows and the back windows, which are plastic pieces of plastic that provide a vapor barrier to keep hoarfrost from forming over that window. So you
yeah,
got a hole to look out. The rest of your windows inside, except your windshield, you can't put that over your windshield. So
right.
you got to run some defrost in your windshield just so you got a little hole to look out. The
Yeah,
hoarfrost forms on the inside of your vehicle and inside glass. It can get really thick in a hurry. Like
oh
Stacey
yeah,
was pointing out, it's unbelievable. And so the funny thing is that you don't want your feet to freeze, so you're having to adjust between where you're running your heater or your defrost. So you can choose between where you can see just a little bit
right,
or have your feet not freeze.
right.
And so this is my experience in Alaska. And typically when I'm doing that, I'm on my way to get a ice cream. That's Alaska.
Yep, yep, yep,
I lived
yep.
close to Delta Junction, and when I was there, they opened their very first, and there was no red light in 100 miles. They opened their very first fast food place, and this is very much Alaska. The very first fast food place was a Tasty Freeze ice cream.
Oh, okay,
Ice
gotcha.
cream is real popular in Alaska. It's cold. Why would you do it? Well, you get a lot of calories out of it, so it'll give
It
you
is
heat.
up here.
Yeah.
And my husband comes home with ice cream every other day. every every other day.
Ice
It's just
cream is
something.
popular up north. It's real popular. The
Well,
calories.
you know, people, I know people, there's a standing joke about Wisconsin women, you know, how we're bigger. There's a reason women in the north are bigger. We're thicker up here because we have to be. You know, our food is thicker. Like I always kind of giggle because my mother-in-law from San Antonio, and the first time I ate her chili, I was like, what is this? It was like soup, you know? And come to find out that those guys down there, that's how they eat their chili. But up here it's thick, it's got noodles, it's got beans, it's got tomatoes and carrots. It's a real thick because you need it to get through the cold, you know, because just like animals, when they eat hay, they create a metabolic heat in their gut. That's why I told the farmers extra hay, right? That heats them from the warm. It's the same thing for us. If we eat a good hearty meal, it'll heat us for hours from the inside out.
Well, us
So
human beings, we're really tropical animals. That's why we have to wear coats and covering, and it's hard for us to imagine that these animals are comfortable in the wild. But like
yeah,
Stacy said, they are actually made for it. The
yeah,
animals are made for these temperatures. They survive worse than you might imagine. Although,
yeah,
but the farther north you get, you see the animals bulk up. They get larger and larger.
yeah.
You know, your deer, even white-tailed deer, are bigger up north. You go down to Florida, and they look like little dogs running around.
Yeah,
I
that
laugh
was
at them.
when I was 18. We went on a road trip to Dallas and Fort Worth, Texas, and
Yeah.
we went into this. It was a pub bar grill thing, and they were so impressed about their big bucks. And I didn't know a lot of those people down there still call us Yankees up here. I didn't know that, but of course they picked us out. Oh, you all Yankees, aren't you? You know, yeah, yeah. And what do you think about our deer? And I kind of giggled. And he says, well, what do you mean by that? I said, those aren't deer, those are puppies. You know, so of
Oh
course
yeah.
I offended them, but
Well, in my area, they're a little bigger than goats. You know, they're bigger than the ones down. They're fair size. You know, but they're nothing like the deer up north. Farther north, the farther north you go, and finally getting far enough north, you know, your what becomes more prevalent is elk and moose and
yep,
caribou. These are big animals, and
yep,
I was always impressed how in the world a caribou, I mean especially a moose, kept its legs from freezing because they got this huge bulky body, but their legs are spindly,
long,
skinny,
yep,
long and
yep,
skinny. So how they keep their toes from freezing because they're down walking in the snow all the time. They must
yep,
have some good circulation through those little skinny legs to keep
yep. Well, and Greg,
toes
I'm
from
glad you mentioned snow because that's what I did want to mention to you folks down south. The snow is not your enemy here.
ice.
It's ice is your enemy. If you got some good fluffy snow, use it to pack the back of your house. That is actually a good insulator. When we a lot of the homes that we lived at, we were in a double wide trail for a while, and that's what we did. We took the snowblower, we blew the snow on top of the house because it actually insulates it from that cold wind. When we go ice fishing, we're out ice fishing all the time. There's always piles of snow on the ice shacks all around the bottom because that, you know, that insulate, it's an insulation factor. So snow is not your enemy, it's the ice. But you know, there's things you can do long term too. Like, so I talk, and Greg, I'm going to be honest with you. My friend Susan and John, John's from Wisconsin, Susan's from Texas, and they recently had to move back to Texas because they they um, they were blessed. They became very profitable, so they couldn't stay up here because our state would take all their money, so to speak, because of taxes. Okay, but they also own properties up in the UP. Well, when they went back south, the hurricane 2 years ago, it was the first year they had been back in a few years. They got hit with they're down in Corpus Christi. So they got hit and their electricity was out 3-4 weeks, just like everybody else's. They live in a higher end community, but they were hit just like anybody else. They had to leave for 10 days because it was so hot and so muggy. And one of the things that we don't have up here, like down south, their homes are made for air conditioning. So a lot of the windows in the newer homes don't open. So they left for 10 days, came back. Big issue, she said, that they had to deal with was mold, you know, getting things up and going. Now, financially, they had the means to take action immediately when they got back after that hurricane so that they weren't in that situation again. Okay. And I pray that's what a lot of these folks did, because whether it's a hurricane or a polar vortex, preparation is preparation. If you're preparing for an event, all events are pretty the same. The only thing with the hurricane is the flooding that you got to deal with, you know. But they went in immediately, got generator. So they are one of few that still has heat down in Corpus Christi and where they're at, because they got generators and they're producing heat, you know. So
that brings in a whole other set of topics too.
it does. And when we talk about the next 10 days, I don't know how long. Now, my friends are lifelong third generation oil people, and they have wind farms. So they got people that rent their land with wind farms. So I get that just these wind farms are froze up. They're not producing, bottom line. She said that there was issues with some of the energy companies. They could have tried to keep it on, but some of them just shut it off. And there's some situations there they're really questioning from people that have been in oil and wind and, you know, energy kind of thing for a long time. But bottom line is if you had bought a generator, a lot of these things would be mitigated immediately, you know, along with, you know, 20, 50 gallons of gas stored up. So that in the next 10 days, if you have the financial means, Greg, which it's going to be hard because a lot of the stores are shut down. And I imagine everybody went to run to get their generators, right? So if you can't do that, that's one thing, but there's other things you can do. See these? These are hand warmers. You shake them. Believe it or not, these things, they work. I can be sitting in a deer stand, you know, at 15 below zero with a 25-mile-an-hour wind, and you put these in your mitts and they'll keep you warm and you'll be able to sit there all day long. You know, they work. They're called hot, you know, hot hands or hot pockets. You shake them and they create heat. You know, if you were older, you know, an elder, and you were in the bed and you were having problems staying warm, take a few of these, put them under, shake them, and then you're creating heat under the blanket.
You probably find those in the stores up there, don't you?
You could find these in the stores, yeah. You can order these online on Amazon. You can get them on Amazon.
You have to go online to get them here. A lot of things, a lot of the stuff. There's stuff I used to buy in the stores when I was in Alaska. I can't even find online. Mucklucks and the kind of gear we wore up there. I can't even find that stuff online.
Yeah, I ordered these online actually. Is where I got those from. But that's something. And another thing, I hope that most of them have. But if they don't, the best thing you can have, and I'm not kidding you, and I'm talking real wool, not the fake with the rayon and the cotton mix. Real wool socks. Real wool. If you have a pair of real wool socks, it'll number one, it'll keep your feet warm. But if you end up having to work a little bit to do some things and your feet sweat, it's going to wick away that sweat from your feet, because your biggest enemy in the cold is sweating underneath your clothes and then having the cold come in and freeze you. So next 10 days, get out and get every member of the family a good pair of wool socks. You know, a good wool hat. You got good wool socks, a good wool hat. You know, your feet, most of your heat goes out of the top of your head. Your feet are the first thing to get cold in cold weather. And y'all pile under some blankets and you're good to go. You're not going to freeze in your house. You can go on Army Supply or, you know, the Army surplus websites, or if you have Army surplus stores in your area, and you can get the good quality wool, 100% wool blankets. All right. You should have a wool blanket for everybody in your family and then some extra. I know in the deep South, Greg, like my friend, she's in Corpus Christi, a lot of people don't have even winter coats. But if you got a good wool blanket, you can make yourself a nice poncho real easy. You just cut a hole in the middle of it and you got a poncho, and put a belt around your waist section and you're warm. So not only is the wool blanket keeping you warm at night, well, now if you have to venture out, you don't got gas in your car because the gas stations are all shut down. At least you can make it somewhere to check on grandma down the road or whatever. You can do that. So that's, again, next 10 days, that's a long-term thing. And I've been preaching on my channel for 4 months now with these stimulus checks, Greg. Do not go waste that money on a vacation or what have you. Go out and spend it on preps. You know, if you're going to spend it on something, spend it on preparation goods. And so, you know, I would hope that people would take this advice, and you don't necessarily need to go out and buy a $200 winter coat. Just buy good blankets. Get yourself a generator when you're able to do that again. Get some gas storage. And that generator, Greg, is not only going to help in the polar vortex, but it's going to help if the power goes out for the hurricane that's coming down the road again. You know,
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. So
there's several things to talk about here in that regard. Hey, but talking about preps, let me do a quick shameless plug.
Yeah, go for it.
Guys, really and truly, it's a good time to get long-term food storage, because we're talking about temporary problems, but this should be training and giving you awareness that we can get in long-term situations where we may not have food. Station and I've done a number of videos together on possibilities of losing our power grid like for years. And maybe I would say if an EMP, you're not going to get it back. It's not coming back. And I've discussed that before.
Yeah.
I'll do that more in the future. But this is 25-year shelf life food, stuff that's good. I mean, its date, expire by dates are 25 years in the future. So it's good for longer than that. I've talked about canned food in a previous video. This stuff is great because it lasts 25 years. It's lightweight. It's very portable. You can store these. You can put them in a hole in the ground, have caches. If you got a bug out along the way where you're going, you can put these in your closet. You can throw them in your boat, your car, or if you got big motorcycle, you might even throw them on the back. But the cool thing about this stuff is it's the pouches inside. This stuff is flexible. That is 4 servings right there. 4 servings of creamy chicken flavored rice. That sounds pretty yummy. And what you can do, that is equivalent to 2 of these big metal cans. Now, again, as Stacy pointed out, you don't have to heat what's in cans. That's a good thing about cans. But
Yeah.
you know, that's hard to put in a backpack. I'm going to tell you, that's not fun in the backpack.
Yeah.
I have carried cans in backpacks, like maybe I do like corned beef hash, and anything in a can's pretty much ready to eat, especially if you don't want to make a campfire because you don't want to be seen with a fire. But I'll be doing Dakota fireplaces in not too distant future. I know you've probably seen that on some other channels. People that ask me about it though, so I'll do that in a future video. Now, all that said, oh yeah, future videos. Make sure that you subscribe to Vicky's channel, and make sure you subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. Hit the notification bell and bang that bell and click all, because that's where you really get the notifications. You got to click all. Some people say it don't really matter if you don't do that. So there you go. I just wanted to cover that in respect to cans. Do stock up though, and everything you can, including dry beans and rice and things like this. But if you go to prepwithgreg.com, I forgot that part. If you go to prepwithgreg.com, you get 20% off of this stuff. Plus, you can go in. There's a My Patriot Supply logo. You go into that, and you can click on and get all kinds of other prep and supplies. Like you're going to need to be able to purify and sanitize your water. I've also done a video on that, which I went into quite a depth on that. But you got to be able to purify and sanitize your water, because water is crucial, as Vicky said. Or not Vicky. Pardon me, Stacy. As Stacy said, there are the water only lasts like well, look, guys, you can't last 3 days without water, and that's under a good situation. If you're out in the desert or you're really hot, you may not make it that long if you're sweating. You could literally be in trouble in a matter of hours. I mean, life-threatening trouble in a hurry. Water is crucial. Air before that, but you got to make sure you can stay warm and not freeze. That's crucial. You don't want to go into hypothermia. Hypothermia will end you in a hurry. So you got to have comfort in that regard. The wool, I don't see a lot of wool blankets around here. You might find a few, but here in the South, we're just not equipped like you guys up north.
Yeah, that's what I said. Go online and go to the Army surplus online stores, and you can get them there.
Yeah, right. When I was in the Army, everybody had one wool blanket. I don't remember if we had a sleeping bag. We might have, but we had a wool blanket. We had if we had a sleeping bag, it probably was wool. We had wool socks. We had, that was about it. We had some of that kind of stuff. But the poncho, I like the poncho idea that Vicky brought up. You look kind of like Clint Eastwood. What do you call that thing he wore? What's the name for that? He's always flipping it back. Yes, you look kind of like Clint Eastwood. So
I'll tell you what, I'll take a wool poncho over any winter coat any day of the week. And history has proven the versatility and the superior product of wool. Wool, number one, keeps in heat, but like I said, it wicks away the moisture, so it keeps you warm. It keeps out the moisture from coming in. And Greg, it is pretty much fireproof, believe it or not. If you are sitting next to a fire and you got an amber that comes up on the wall, it'll just go out. I mean, of course, if you stand in fire, that's not what I'm talking about. But if you're next to fire and it touches it, because there's lanolin in wool, and it's an anti-inflammatory, flame resistant material. So there's lots of good reasons why people should have it.
Well, Stacy, if you're going to stand in fire, the only thing I got to say is you can't fix stupid.
Exactly. But Greg, you got to watch what you say, because somebody would say, well, they said I could stick my arm in the fire and I wouldn't, So that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about a spark from a fire. I'm talking about, oops, I got a little too close, that kind of thing. But, I just, I'm, Greg, I want to talk a little serious about this, because we've talked about this before. And I have kind of a word of wisdom for people listening right now. Do not look at this event down in Texas and in the South and all this electricity as a bad thing. Thank the Creator above for it, for this speed bump in your life. Because what happens today, this week, the wisdom that you gain from it could save you in the future. See, I've been saying this all week on my channel. Don't curse this. Don't complain about it. Learn from it. Gain wisdom from it, because one day, and I know this in my heart, if it never happens, thank God, but I believe we are going to get hit by an EMP. And if it happens, it's not going to be 3 days or 3 weeks. It's not even going to be 3 years, like Greg said. It's going to be years before the power comes back on. And we're not just talking about 6 people dead in all of Texas at that point. We're talking about 6 million dead at that point, if not more. Like you said, in 3 months' time, 90% of the population will be gone. So take this event, you people in the South, right? And prepare from it. Learn what you need. 2 years ago, Greg, we had massive storms here. We had 3 months of constant rain. Our ground was saturated, and then we got another big windstorm with 100-mile-an-hour winds that were, when the ground is saturated, them tree roots, the wind comes and it just blows them over. It was a rough season. We took what we learned from that season and said, all right, we have to do this to our house. We have to do this to our house. We need gutters. We need, we're going to have to put side porches, porch to make sure the water goes out. We're going to start collecting some of this excess water. Even if we don't use it for the garden, we're going to, irrigate it elsewhere and take it to the ditch. And we prepared. And then last year when the storms came, guess what? Power was still on. We were out 7 days the year before, but we adapted. We gained wisdom from the trial, and we didn't whine about it. We took action, and that's what we as Americans are known for, Greg, is to learn from our mistakes or learn from our trials, fight through them, and be survivors. That's the American spirit right there. So don't whine about it. Take action. And make sure your family isn't in this situation again. That's what I have to say to all that,
Yeah. Let me add some generator tips. Generators. If you got a gasoline generator, when you get done, be sure to drain the carburetor out, or it'll gel up. Or alternately, you need to crank the generator about every month and run it just a little bit. You don't have to put a load on it, just run it a little bit to keep it in running condition. If you've got a propane generator, you don't have to do that.
Right.
If you're looking at a long-term grid down, you're going to have to figure out how to make wood gas or something else to run that generator, because you're not going to be going to the gas station and buying gas. You're going to have what you got, and you'll have the luxury of having that generator until it breaks down. Now, if you got 2 of them, you might be able to use spare parts to get it going. Any electric motor can be turned into a generator. So if you got the pulleys and tools and things, you could have generators running for a while with a little mechanical acumen, but eventually one day all that stuff will wear out if we're living in a post grid down situation. Right. So you got to prepare. That's why I do videos talking about getting manual tools and doing things on the manual side. So it's good for exercise. But a lot of people don't realize that just how fragile our civilization is. But so to weigh upon you the long-term aspect of the grid down. An EMP could fry all of our large transformers, all of them, or a vast, large number of them. There are other events that could do the same. A well-coordinated hacking attack, a direct ballistic attack where people go in and directly damage them with what you call sleeper cells. And I'm told there's quite a few of those in the United States today. 9 of these, if you took down 9 of these, it would take down our entire national grid. There's 9 critical ones. And the commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard said he'd already targeted 20 of them when he was told that. He said, so what? I've already targeted 20. So that was his reply to that. So somebody goes, okay, you're giving out sensitive information. No, they already know it.
There was a fictional prepper book actually made on that very topic.
Yeah.
And the author was a government official that worked to prepare the nation, and that's why he wrote it.
Yeah.
So
they already know this stuff, but we don't. That's the problem. A lot of Americans just aren't aware that these transformers have hand wound coils because they're custom made for the application they're in. It takes very skilled artisans to do this. South Africa tried to build some of their own, and all theirs failed within 3 years. They thought they could cover it, but they didn't have the skill base to build them.
Right.
And all theirs all failed. Because they had a little solar anomaly down there that took out a bunch of their transformers, so they tried to deal with it that way. As you get closer to the poles, you're more like Quebec, more vulnerable to events. Quebec got taken down in 1989. The transformers are 200 to 400 tons. They're like the weight of a house. These things, the flat cars that can move them, there's only like a dozen of them in the United States. The trucks, the trains, the infrastructure to move these is extremely limited. So, and you're not going to build more stuff if the infrastructure you need to build stuff is gone. It takes, the time you order one of these, it takes 18 months just to get it on your loading dock.
Right.
Then you got to install it. But see, the problem is that they project the EMP task force, the congressionally directed or mandated EMP task force, had determined that 9 out of 10 people would not make it a year.
Right.
So now you're in a country that most of your skill base is already gone. How did you order these things when all the requisition systems we have today is based on electronic money and electronic banks ordered over electronic networks of the internet? All that's going to be gone. Every way, all this means of doing business will be gone.
Right.
The technicians who would normally deal with it, even before everybody's gone, are going to be home worried about mom and the kids. You're going to have a hard time having anybody on the job. And then you start losing mass numbers of people. The number of people left is going to be pitiful. You're not going to have the kind of manpower you need. And a lot of that manpower is going to be focused on immediate survival. So replacing the power grid, normally if everything was working right, you could replace it in 3 to 10 years. But that's assuming that you've got the requisition systems, that you've got the ability to install it. See, even the trucks to move it won't have fuel to accomplish their jobs because the grid being down, the pumps won't work, the diesel's not there, the spare parts aren't there, the manufacturers to make the parts to run these trucks don't run very long without spare parts. These trucks break down all the time, and you're always having to get parts and do maintenance. All your maintenance logistics, the supply chain is vanished. Basically the whole system unravels, completely unravels. I personally I find it very difficult to imagine there'll be much of a grid up 10 years down the road. That there might be spots and places where there'll be something running, but it'll be very limited. I don't expect the national grid to come back for many decades.
Right.
It won't be the same country we had before.
Oh, no.
We may be under occupation. I mean, if somebody wanted to occupy us, the first thing they'd want to do is take down our grid and stand back and give us a year to wipe each other out. And then we'd be a lot weaker and more ready for somebody to come in. If somebody would occupy this country, that would be the MO they would follow. I hope that don't happen. I pray that don't happen. And I think we can resist it. But the whole idea that we're not hardening our grid, look at Texas. See, what happened in Texas, a lot of it was just the operators of the windmills. They didn't do the maintenance required. And so the windmills.
How many times have you heard on YouTube channels and from the professionals, Texas will be fine, we got our own grid? How many times have you heard that?
But it's not hard. It's not a hardened grid. And they got the same problems all the rest of the grid have. Yeah, they tell you that it's a false sense of security, guys. False sense of, they have their own grid. They could fix it. they could do a lot better if they would do it. There was
Yeah.
some action that started in that direction with the Air University under General Quast for the Air Force, but they kind of retired him. He was trying to get some things set up in San Antonio. I think there's still some momentum. So maybe San Antonio will have a microgrid and be one of those places that might still be powered. But
Right.
and we was hoping these microgrids could get established nationwide and be used to black start the nuclear power plants and things like that. But we're at real risk here, guys. The grid has not been hardened, and all the lobbyists, see the power grid companies that are out there, they have tons of lobbyists. They're very well funded, millions of dollars a year, and us that are here trying to point out the problems, we're not funded like that. We don't have an
Right.
industry backing us. So that's what we have to go up against. And so these companies, they have no reason to want to do anything like keep their windmills running. See, there's
Right.
the point. There is the point. These windmills could have been fixed. They knew what it took to keep them going. They didn't want to do it. They did not want to do it, and they weren't going to do it unless they were made to do it, and they will not do it. They won't even do it coming out of this unless somebody legislates them and says, you got to do this. So it's
Right.
not happening. I mean, if you want case in point, go look in California. Look what a great example they've set for us with
Yeah.
maintaining their grid and availability of power to their citizens. So I'm
Right.
telling you, the grid is not hardened. It's very vulnerable. It's vulnerable across this entire country. And the industry is fighting us tooth and nail to keep from doing what we need to do. Some of us, I've been involved in 2 power grid defense conferences. I'm involved in 2 organizations that meet either weekly or monthly and on the national scale to try to get this done. And it's an
Yeah.
uphill battle. I believe we can do it, but we got to get awareness out to you people.
Right.
We can get this
And
grid
Greg,
hardened.
at your last interview that you had with the gentleman in the know about the EMP, and I can't remember his name, one of the things that I learned very clearly that I didn't know before that is it's not our government that's the enemy. It's not even so much the other nations. It's these corporations that don't want, they're fighting it. They don't want to put in the money. They don't want to put in the effort. And that's where I said, we as citizens, we go to our representatives and we make these corporations responsible for every death that falls under a grid down situation when it happens. These people that have died in Texas, put it on the corporations' heads.
It didn't have to happen. It don't have to happen.
Right.
And
We
our
got
whole
to have
nation's at risk.
legislation, though. We got to start somewhere to try to legislate these corporations to have some responsibility when they don't want to spend the money it takes to keep America safe.
See,
You know,
here's the problem. There are so many look, I do safeties. I do avionic system safety on a really large rocket. But you know, I've done a lot of electronics and electrical design, the electrical networks in nodes 2 and 3 on the International Space System. I did all the pin and layouts for that stuff. I've done a lot of system designs in the world of power systems. I've actually designed and installed power systems into industrial control equipment that's been sent all over the world. So I'm going to tell you that the key thing is that our main impediment is the industry itself. It's the National Electric Reliability Corporation and their minions. They have been given the so-called rights to come up with all the policy. It's owned by the industry. They come up with all the policy, and then they send it to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and they rubber stamp. So you got NERC and FERC. Well, NERC, so we got the industry proposing all the regulations and gets rubber stamped by FERC. They got it set up, the lobbyists got it set up such that FERC can't even propose the regulations. They have to come from the industry. All they can do is rubber stamp it. So it's a very incestuous, backwards relationship that the lobbyists got set up. It's not going to serve us. So what I worry about is a system safety guy is this. That's one reason I brought this up, is that we look at a hazard. What's the hazard? Then we look at root causes. What can cause it? What's the worst event that could happen? So that's your hazard. And what are the causes? There are so many root causes that could cause us to lose our power grid. It's mind-boggling. So you have to look at when you look at causes, you look at likelihood and you look at consequence. Well, the consequence is off the chart. It's like full-scale nuclear war off the chart.
Mother Nature throws a little cold at it. I mean, look at just think about if the EMPs went off. This is, you know, it's mind-blowing to me.
There are several root causes, including some that absolutely will happen. It's just a matter of time. You give the sun enough time, it will take us out if we do nothing. A lot of people say, "Oh, Greg, well, they're going to do it to us." The only thing they have to do it to us is exactly what they're doing right now, which is a big nothing, because eventually the sun will get us.
Right.
The sun,
Right.
they don't have to pull a switch, have to do anything. Just keep doing the same stuff they're doing.
Right.
Keep just puddling along, and eventually our grid's going down. It'll go down for
Right.
good, and the consequences are going to be horrific. We should not be in a situation like this. This is to me, it's malfeasance. It's criminal negligence.
Well, and but yet the same people at the top are boasting that America is the greatest nation in the world, but we're not. We're not protecting our citizens. You know, our citizens are. So there really needs to be a national insight. One of the things Greg, I get this all the time. People ask me, well, if you don't think the power is coming, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm prepping to not have to rely on solar or wind or any of it. That if we're going back to the dark ages, I'm going to do as the medieval times people did, and I'm going to live like they did. You guys down in the South need to go back to your roots and spring houses were a big thing in the South. A little creek, you put your milk in for a few days to keep it cool. They had spring houses. Up here we had and Amish still do it. We have ice houses up here, so we harvest ice in the winter to carry us through the summer for refrigeration. And it's not refrigeration; it's just an ice house. The only reason we own a generator, Greg, is for those hiccups now before this happens. But if an EMP happens, I have that generator. I can go 2 months so that I can get all of my beef, pork, or not, I don't eat pork, my beef, lamb, chicken, everything that I have in my freezers, that within 2 months time, I can get it canned up, put away. And when I'm done with that, the freezers are shut off. The generator is it's just there. At that point, it's spare parts, you know what I mean? I'm not relying, like you said, the parts wear out. And in most generators today, if you ran them a solid month, good luck starting them after the month. They're pretty much worn out. Nothing's made like it used to be,
Very true, very true. This is why I was telling everybody, all this stuff's going to wear out. Most preppers today are doing electronic prepping. They're buying batteries, they're buying little solar packs, they're buying all this stuff to keep their electrical stuff and their cell phone working. Well, guess what? Cell phones will go out. They'll be up for good. The network may be up a little while, but eventually all that stuff's going down and going out. Your generator will last for a while, but eventually it's going to wear out. Now, like I said, if you have a mechanical acumen, you can build and rebuild generators for a period of time. Right. But eventually you're going to run out of resources and all that's going to go out. The time will come, you're not going to have a generator.
That's right.
This is why I tell everybody to buy manual tools. I've done several videos about running to Lowe's and running to the flea markets and different places and just scarfing up manual tools. I got a ton of manual tools. I mean, drill bits. The augers, the brace bits.
The auger drill bit. I'll tell you what, that's a lifesaver, because
I got a bunch of them.
The rechargeable, you're out by the cows, you're doing something in the barn or whatever, and you have here, right? Look, you have your battery pack. And in the cold, these things, they last an hour if you're lucky. And what do? You go back to the tried and true hand tools. I mean, it's having a hand drill on hand is a lifesaver. It's been for us for years. There you go. See, the old Milwaukee.
I've got my tools just like you talked about, because they are handy. They do stuff fast. If you got to do a lot of work real fast, they're hard to beat. I do have them, but I've got plenty of backup. I've got several bracing bits. I've got old blacksmith. I got two old giant what you might call drill presses that are totally manual.
Right.
I'm gonna set up a blacksmith shop not too distant future. One up here and one in Arizona. Those are ones.
And Greg, now everything screws. Back in the day, everything was nails, because you could pound a nail in and pull it out. You didn't have to sit here and do this. So like what we've been doing is we've been buying as many nails as absolute possible. Because think about that, Greg, not being able to find nails. It's little things like that that people need to think of. the old trades will come back. You know, the guy who can make nails, right? The guy who can
Blacksmith. Have a
blacksmith,
blacksmith forge. Who's
the
gonna be
guy who
popular?
can
Farmers,
make a metal
blacksmith.
weight. Yep. All
Uh,
that stuff is going to come into fashion again real quick.
the old trades. If you know how to, and you'll have to know how to farm the old way. But old worm farmers will be popular because it's
Yeah.
gonna be a.
Well, even
If
you
you
know,
raise sheep,
I got sheep. I just butchered my last one, but I'm getting more. Old-fashioned clippers, you know, the shears, the hand shears. Now everything's mechanized. You especially in the South, like we can keep the fleece on a sheep for a couple years and it's not a big deal up here. But down south, you can't do that. If they don't have that, they're not sheared, you're going to kill that animal in a good hot summer, you know. So it's things like that to think outside of the box. But I just yeah, the last thing, because I gotta start getting ready to go milk some cows, is I keep coming back to you folks down south in Texas, wherever you're at. Consider getting out of the cities. Consider getting out of the cities, because I don't expect, Greg, I don't expect everybody in Corpus Christi to run out and put a wood stove like I have in my house, because it really wouldn't make sense, right? But they could have a small type of version of what I have, right, for emergency purposes only, and they could put it in their garage, and they could put it, you know, install it in their house if they need it or whatever. But if you come out of the cities, you have the ability to do that and make that decision in your home. But if you're living in an apartment somewhere, you can't go run out and get a cast iron stove and plug a hole through that wall for exhaust for the smoke. You can't do that. You know, so, you know, it's that the idea is, and if you you work in the city, that's fine. Be within 30 minutes of the city or what have. My husband's 45 minutes away from where he works. 35, 45 minutes, something like that. It's just, people really need to start to think about that. And not everybody believes that they're called to leave the city, and that's fine. I know Dr. Paul is still in the city. And there are people that are going to have to be there, doctors, things like this to help people. I get that. But if you can do it, do it. I'm actually going to be doing a video in the next week on buying land, because we have bought land on land contract or rent to own in the past. So I'm going to be talking about that and how to stay out of the banking system, and going into debt that way. I know a lot of people get scared when they see the owner financing situation, but I'm going to make a video on telling people that they shouldn't be afraid of that. You should actually fear the banks more than you should fear your neighbor,
Well, the banks and I have 2 acres here in Alabama that I live on, but I own free and clear 40 acres in Arizona.
Good for you.
That's free and clear. So
good for you.
I just got to pay the taxes on it.
Yep. And taxes.
Do we have time to talk driving tips? Do we have time to talk driving tips now?
Yeah, we do. I can send that up on one hand on tips for you guys down in the South. I was very disturbed when I saw the video down in Texas, the 100-car pileup and all the deaths. That didn't have to happen, Greg. Didn't have to happen. Pure negligence on a lot of, and especially you truck drivers. Dear God, you have a lot of responsibility with that tank of yours. There's people's lives in your hands. Number one.
Talking about 4-wheel drive pickups. You guys think you can stop them? Those are going to be the hardest darn thing to stop because they got too much momentum.
Yeah. And the semi drivers, there was just as many semis in that mess as there was cars. So number one, if you have the ability to stay off the road, stay off the road. I know a lot of you down south think that we up here, we drive in anything. The fact is we know enough that if we got, we'll drive in 5-6 inches, that's not a problem. But when we start getting 11, 12 inches and we start getting 3-4 foot drifts, we stay home. We don't, if you have to work in it, you call your employer and you say, listen, I need an hour. I got to get plowed out. I got to wait for at least the plows to come through. You wait until the plows go through once and then you head out. But you don't head out on the highway. You stay off the highway. You take the back ways to work, right? So because it's not so much that you driving in the snow or the ice is the threat, because you, if you're wise, will slow down. If your speed limit 75, you're going to slow down to 45 or 35, whatever is appropriate. And you're going to, slow and steady as she goes. It's the other people on the road that you have to be concerned with, and you want to stay away from people. So you stay off the highways. You take the back or the county roads to town if you have to go. So that's number one. Stay off the roads if you can. Number two, slow down. Absolutely slow way down. I was watching people on that video that you clearly could see that and nobody was slowing down. I mean, you could see they weren't even tapping on the brakes, Greg. Okay. Okay, so slow down. Number three, when you slow down, if you need to stop, you cannot slam on your brakes. Okay, so a vehicle in motion stays in motion on ice. This is Newton's law of physics. If wheels are turning and boom, they stop, the vehicle is going to keep going. But what you do is you pump the brakes. You pump them, and not hard. You pump them a little bit. You slow down, you take your foot off the gas, you keep slowing down way ahead, you pump it again, you pump it. When you see black ice, I know a lot of people, then black ice you can see, it's when you're on the road at night and all of a sudden you look in your headlights and it looks black. That's black ice. You can't freak out. You don't slam on the brakes. You just take your foot off the gas pedal. That's it. Take that foot off the gas pedal and keep going over it. And you're on the free and clear. But yeah, you pump to a stop. You don't slam on the brakes. If you do start skidding out, so you're going straight and you start going for the ditch. Hey guys, if it's a snowstorm and you're heading for a ditch and there's nothing there that nobody you're going to kill, or go in the ditch. Because what's going to happen if you're going this way, you're going to overcompensate, and then the car actually turns around and you're taking out other people with you. Always when you're going into a ditch, you turn into it and you just go with it. You don't try to stop it. Just go into the ditch. And the fact of the matter is our highway systems are designed so that if you slide, especially if there's snow piled up in the ditch, not much is going to happen to you. It's a little bumpy ride and you should be good to go, but don't try to overcompensate, because a lot of times people, when they start going to the ditch, they turn the other way. Well, now you're just spinning in the middle of the road and you're taking out other cars with you. Don't do that. When I was 14, my mom and dad had a 1977 baby blue Cadillac 4-door, big old boat. And my dad took us out on Lake Dubay, and the ice was froze, clear ice, and said, all right, have at it. And he would have us up to 100 in that thing. And he would have us spinning out and telling us how to correct it on ice, on snow ice, on a lake. And so we did that every winter from 14, 15. And then by the time we were 16, we had our license and we could drive in the winter, no problem. It was not an issue for us. So, when I say pump the brakes, if you're going towards the ditch, head for the ditch. Don't try to correct yourself. The kids in the back seat will be fine. Keep them in their car seats, keep them in their seat belts. Little bumpy ditches. Hey, I've been a school bus driver at one point in my life for 7 years. I've seen a lot of things, and heading for a ditch, it doesn't hurt nothing. As long as you're not going 75 miles an hour. At 35 or 45 miles an hour, you're not going to flip your car in the ditch, so just slow down. But that's my advice on the whole car thing. So stay home if you can, but if you can't, do what you got to do.
Now, let me add to that just a little bit. She said, talking about the slowing down, that's critical. You don't drive as fast. Same way here, rain too. I see people going crazy fast in the rain. There's no sense in it. But in rain, you can hydroplane. So here's the thing. You got the momentum of your vehicle. The bigger vehicle is going to have more momentum. You can't take the momentum out if you don't have a way to subtract it. If your tires aren't getting traction on that ice, and they won't, that momentum stays the same. Think of it like driving a boat. Driving a car on ice is kind of like that, maybe a little worse. At least water gives you some resistance.
Yeah.
Think
Yeah.
about what it takes to stop a boat when you're coming up to a pier. Well, this is going to be even worse. At least with a boat, you can start out pretty good because that propeller is going to turn water. But even starting a car out, you're spinning on ice. So here's
Yeah.
the key. If you come up to an intersection, let's say she said, you pump, you slow down, you drive slow, you slow down, and she said way ahead. But I'm going to add to that. What you do basically, my analogy is you sneak up on the intersection. You just kind of
Yeah.
creep into it. You sneak up on it.
Roll
Because
a rolling stop. Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you've got anything more where you would just come to a stop naturally almost by the time you get there. If you do anything else, when you hit those brakes, guess what? You're going right through that intersection and you're going to be playing billiard balls with all the other cars, especially
Yeah.
in the south that are doing the same thing you're doing. And you're likely to get crunched really nicely. And you're probably not going to like that. Hopefully you won't get hurt. But when you set that intersection at the stop, now you're stopped. I mean, if you can just have a little creep and rolling going, you're better off if you don't have to come to full stop, but you may have to because of traffic. If you can do come to full stop to get going again, you got to ease off of it. I mean, very gently, because if you hit the gas any little bit, it's just going to spin your tire. You're going nowhere.
Right.
You might actually slide over in the other lane and hit your neighbor.
Yeah.
So you suddenly had a wreck trying to get started.
The key is always prepared in mind. If you've got 2 weeks vacation, save 3 of those days to stay home if there's a bad storm. Then I'm not on the road. I don't have to be on the road. If you have the storms, we always laugh at the memes on Facebook about the people running for milk and bread down south during a storm or whatever. We always laugh at that. That you shouldn't have to do that. You should have had that food a month before. If the food is in your house, you don't have to leave your house. You don't have to put your family at risk.
And that's the whole thing about prepping anyway. That's why I was laughing when all the toilet paper preppers hit the stores. I went in just to get a little coffee for my coffee fund at work. It was late night, and I went into the Sam's Club, and the parking lot was full. It was almost closing time. I go, what? And I walked in, and all the way to the back of the store were carts full of every last shred of toilet paper and paper towels that store had in it, and I was dying laughing. I couldn't help it. People got mad at me over it, but to me, it was ridiculous because I had already I always kept large quantities of stuff like that at the house just in case. So I was covered. But people need to do it. They need to think ahead and get extra supplies and store. That's what prepping's about. And that's station I cover prepping. We cover gardening, urban farming. She's not exactly urban there, but she also covers, that topic area, the genre of gardening. And
I've designed urban gardens before. I've designed gardens for golf resorts in desert-like conditions. I've done it all. So
she's very much into the farming there, the homesteading. She is a homesteader and a good one.
You look at me. See, I'm not lacking. See, I'm thick. Never trust the emaciated homesteader.
Bingo. I'm kind of thick myself, That's right. So that's a good one. I like that, Stacy. So Stacy's real people.
That's right.
She's real honest. She lives what she talks about. You don't get any better than that. So once again, I do want you to go subscribe to her channel. She's got still a channel that needs a lot more subscribers. She's got a lot of good content on there for gardening and storing and putting up food. She's the go-to person for that stuff, and she's honest as the day is long, hardworking, and tough as nails. So I really appreciate what she brings to the table. And she's, I recognize her value and her love of freedom and the Lord, and that's why she's also an active member of our Freedom Restoration Foundation. She's one of our founders, so I appreciate that. I've got a lot of appreciation for what she does and represents. So let's all follow her lead every time you get a chance to. She's good people.
I appreciate that, Greg.
So we've covered how to stay warm. We've covered driving tips. Did we leave anything off the table that we want to tell people right now?
You know, just again, that I know there's a lot of people that don't have drinking water right now, and that's big. Get those candles underneath those sinks. Remove the chemicals. Remove the chemicals or any fire hazards that would start on fire, and get that going right now. Right now, within a couple hours, you're going to have water back on again. You
Well,
know,
I've had the pipes in my crawl space freeze. One time I discovered somebody had opened up my door to my crawl space, and
right?
everything froze. Fortunately, none of them broke, but I put a bunch of heaters under the house to thaw them out.
Yep.
And I thought
Yeah,
all
you
the
can do
pipes would
that.
shatter. I was fortunate, but that's when my house was brand new. So
Yeah, and
actually, I did have.
you can even, if you had a propane heater, a blower, you can open up that crawl space as long as you do it carefully. Carefully. You can't leave, but you can blow some heat under there. You can put the kerosene heaters under there. Big candles, Greg,
Yeah.
or a oil lamp will
Be
do it.
careful because a lot of the houses do have insulation right
Right,
underneath. So be careful to put your heat source in such a place that heat rises wherever your heat source
right.
is. Blowing it out, which is probably better, but you could also blow out little embers of flaming fuel. So keep
Yes.
that in mind.
Yeah.
These blower heaters, like my shop heater, I've shown you on some of my videos in my greenhouse, it blows. You'll see little sparks and embers. That's
Yep.
hot flaming fuel. It could set
Yep.
something on fire. And
Yep.
heat sources that are heat rises. So if you got a heat source placed in your place, make sure that anything that's above it is not going to catch fire easily. Remember, there's
That's
rules.
right.
You got 3-foot separation
Yep.
things. So be
Yep.
careful that you might even want to put some metal right underneath it. Go
Yep.
in, tack or nail or screw some metal in right under your rafters. If there's, because you got wood there, you got insulation. That might be a safe thing to do, or at least have 3 foot of separation and keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on it. But
Yeah, that's why I said you can't leave it. Now I've told people best is the old fashioned lamps, oil lamps, with the globe. You put 5 or 6 of those under there, right directly under that line. And it may take a couple, 2-3 hours, but it'll thaw it. It's amazing how much just a little tiny flame puts off. So yeah, I just, I'm praying for you guys down south. But my biggest prayer is that you guys learn from this. Take the trials of today and apply them for tomorrow so that you're not in this situation again.
all right. Well, Stacy, you've covered a lot of good ground, and I appreciate how well grounded you are. And they don't get any better grounded than Stacy here. So it's always a pleasure to have you a guest on my channel. I know you'll be back again and again because we have a lot of ground to cover with people, a lot of things to share and teach people. And you're a great teacher of the things you cover. So once again, everybody, please do check out Stacy's channel and just be safe. Be safe, guys.
Yes.
We got a lot coming for us. Yeah, I'll do a lot of other videos with Stacy and other people. One of my things is I do advocate power grid defense. I'll be bringing more information to you guys about what we need to do for that. So y'all need to prep, but we also need to do what we can to try to keep the national grid from going down, because you don't need all the people running out of the city trying to come beat your door in to get your food, and then especially you don't have to worry about what's going to happen to the nuclear power plants. You don't want that radiation for those is going to make the event a lot worse than that congressional EMP task force estimated. They were on the sunny side of the picture, in my humble opinion.
I have already contacted the gentleman that I'm supporting for the next governorship of Wisconsin about these issues, and he answered me within 2 hours.
Awesome. See, guys, we can take action. There's things that we can
That's
do.
Right.
And that's the kind of stuff I talk about. That's what Stacy is doing. That's why she's in our Freedom Restoration Foundation. She's a no BS, take action, get her done kind of lady. And we all need that kind of attitude to move forward in the future, because those that think we can just lay back and lay around and survive are going to be shocked. I'm going to do some videos of my father. I'm going to reintroduce some of those videos on his 100th birthday on the 11th of April. And, I knew what they went through when he was growing up, because I grew up listening to him talking about the era. He grew up in the 20s and 30s. And they had to scrap for a living. They had to fight for a living. They worked extremely hard day and night for what? The right to sit at the table and eat something. Maybe live in a house that was not too bad drafty. They had a tough life. They didn't work to make some kind of wage so they go buy trinkets and toys. They didn't even know such things existed. They were lucky if they had work clothes to wear in a week and some Sunday clothes to change into for a day or two while they went to church and got their other set of clothes wore. They didn't have closets. They didn't need them. They didn't have a place to put. They didn't have nothing to fit them.
Right.
You know, they bought a pair of shoes in the fall to wear in the wintertime. In the summer, they went barefooted.
Barefoot.
So that's just the way it was. That was,
It's the way it was up here. My grandma
they were lucky.
My grandma Mary passed away last December. Yep. The day she died, she said that the reason her feet looked so terrible is because they walked barefoot all summer long. You know, and that's just the way it was. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to get back to the old ways. That's what I try to do here on my channel. I teach no grain chicken raising. You know, raising meat birds and layers without the reliance of feed mills. When the feed mills are gone, you still got to be able to feed your livestock.
Bingo.
You know.
Bingo.
So
that's it. You got to be able to operate. You can do it, but the knowledge has been lost to a lot of people. So channels like ours, we're wanting to bring that back. You know, I talk about how to garden without having to go to the store and buy fertilizers and pesticides and all that kind of stuff. Worm products. That's a key thing.
Yeah.
And I'll be selling worms again. I hope in April. I'll put my website back up when I do.
Good.
We'll see how that goes. But I've had some things I had to overcome, and I got to redo my website. So there we are, folks. Stacy, I really appreciate you coming on my channel. I always do. We always have a good conversation. Appreciate everything you're doing. And more people need to be like Stacy and go out and do this stuff. We get more people taking that kind of initiative, we're going to be a lot better off in the long run. So everybody, I want to end the video. I'm going to say thank y'all all for watching, and stay warm, stay dry, stay off the road, and stay alive.
That's right.
Watching again. Bye-bye.